Gatlin, Arnold, and Aubrey Willis, Martin Luther King Jr. taking a stand. After graduating from Booker T. Washington High School, Martin Luther King was admitted to Morehouse College at the age of 15. After graduating from Morehouse College, Martin Luther King enters Boston University for graduate studies.
On June 18, 1953, Martin Luther King marries Coretta Scott in Marion, Alabama.
In Brown v. Board of Education, U.S. Supreme Court banned segregation in public schools.
Get on board, children, let's fight for human rights. Let's fight a real fight that we may go to jail. But when you fight for freedom, the Lord will go you will. Get on board, children, get on
Martin Luther King's rise to fame was leading a bus boycott in Montgomery, Alabama. The boycott was launched by Rosa Parks, an African-American woman who was arrested for refusing to give up her seat to a white person on December 1st.
And before I'll be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free and be no segregation, no segregation, no segregation, no segregation over me, over.
In 1957, King forms the Southern Christian Leadership Conference to fight segregation and achieve civil rights.
And go home to my Lord and be free and be no more dogs, no more dogs, no.
In 1958, the U.S. Congress passes the first Civil Rights Act since Reconstruction, and King's first book, Stride Towards Freedom, is published.
In 1958, Martin Luther King Jr. is nearly killed when stabbed by an assailant in Harlem. In 1959, Martin Luther King visits India. He had a lifelong admiration for Gandhi and created Gandhi's passive resistance techniques for his civil rights success.
Nothing but freedom, nothing but freedom over me, and before I be a.
In February of 1960, lunch counter sit-ins began in Greensboro, North Carolina.
On to my Lord and be free and be no more shooting, no.
Later in Atlanta, Martin Luther King is arrested during a sit-in waiting to be served at a restaurant.
Shooting over me, and before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave.
In 1962, King meets with President John F. Kennedy to urge support for civil rights. Later that year at the march, King gives his famous I Have a Dream speech. In 1963, during the 11 days he spent in jail, Martin Luther King writes his famous letter from Birmingham jail.
At that speech, over 250,000 civil rights supporters attended the March on Washington at the Lincoln Memorial. Later in 1963, King leads protests in Birmingham for desegregated department store facilities and fair hiring. On December 10, 1964, Martin Luther King is awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. Dr. King is the youngest person to be awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for Peace at age 35. I say to you today, my friends, that in spite of the difficulties and frustrations of the moment, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at a table of brotherhood. I have a dream that my 4 children will one day live in the nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. Here are a couple quotes from Martin Luther King's letter from Birmingham jail. My dear fellow clergymen, while confined here in Birmingham City Jail, I am across your recent statement calling my present activities unwise and untimely. I think I should indicate why I am here in Birmingham, since you have been influenced by the view which argues against outsiders coming in. Basically, I'm in Birmingham because injustice is here, just as the prophets of old left their villages and carried their "Thus saith the Lord" far behind the boundaries of their hometown. Just as the Apostle Paul left his village of Tarsus and carried the gospel of Jesus Christ to the far corners of Greco-Roman world, so I am compelled to carry the gospel of freedom beyond my own hometown. Like Paul, I must constantly respond to the call for aid. On April 3, 1968, Martin Luther King delivered another famous speech called "I've Been to the Mountaintop." I just want to do God's will, and He's allowed me to go up to the mountain, and I've looked over, and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as people will get to the promised land. And I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. One day later, Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated by a rifleman while standing on the balcony of a Loran motel in Memphis, Tennessee. Martin Luther King's grave is located in Atlanta, Georgia. We will remember this courageous leader for his work in civil rights. His work won the support of millions of people, black and white, and made him internationally famous. Today we honor Martin Luther King with a national holiday on January 15th.
Get your rights, Jack, and don't be a dog no more, no more, no more, no more. Get your rights, Jack, and don't be a dog no more. Get your rights, Jack, and don't be a dog no more, no more, no more, no more. Get your rights, Jack, and don't be a dog no more.